Today's reading is Louise's Ghost, Part 2, a short story in the collection Stranger Things Happen by Kelly Link. And now, Louise's Ghost, Part 2. The woman brings their food. Anna gets a little dish of peas, Brussels sprouts, and collard greens, mashed potatoes and bread. The plate is green. Louise takes a vial of green food coloring out of her purse. She adds 3 drops to the mashed potatoes. Stir it, she tells Anna. Anna stirs the mashed potatoes until they are a waxy green. Louise mixes more green food coloring into a pat of butter and spreads it on the dinner roll. When I was a dog, Anna says, I lived in a house with a swimming pool, and there was a tree in the living room. It grew right through the ceiling. I slept in the tree, but I wasn't allowed to swim in the pool. I was too hairy. I have a ghost, Louise says. She wasn't sure that she was going to say this, but if Anna can reminisce about her former life as a dog, then surely she, Louise, is allowed to mention her ghost. I think it's a ghost. It was in my bedroom. Anna says, when I was a dog, I bit ghosts. Louise says, Anna, be quiet for a minute. Eat your green food before it gets cold. Louise, what do you mean? I thought you had ladybugs. That was a while ago, Louise says. Last month she woke up because people were whispering in the corners of her room. Dead leaves were crawling on her face. The walls of her bedroom were alive. They heaved and dripped red. What? She said, and a ladybug walked into her mouth, bitter like soap. The floor crackled when she walked on it, like red cellophane. She opened up her windows. She swept ladybugs out with her broom. She vacuumed them up. More flew in the windows, down the chimney. She moved out for 3 days. When she came back, the ladybugs were gone, mostly gone. She still finds them tucked into her shoes, in the folds of her underwear, in her cereal bowls and her wine glasses, and between the pages of her books. Before that, it was moths. Before the moths, an opossum. It shat on her bed and hissed at her when she cornered it in the pantry. She called an animal shelter, and a man wearing a denim jacket and heavy gloves came and shot it with a tranquilizer dart. The opossum sneezed and shut its eyes. The man picked it up by the tail. He posed like that for a moment. Maybe she was supposed to take a picture. Man with possum. She sniffed. He wasn't married. All she smelled was possum. How did it get in here? Louise said. How long have you been living here? The man asked. Boxes of Louise's dishes and books were still stacked up against the walls of the rooms downstairs. She still hadn't put the legs on her mother's dining room table. It lay flat on its back on the floor, amputated. 2 months, Louise said. Well, he's probably been here longer than that, the man from the shelter said. He cradled the possum like a baby. In the walls or the attic. Maybe in the chimney. Santa Claus. Huh? He laughed at his own joke. Get it? Get that thing out of my house, Louise said. Your house, the man said. He held out the possum to her, as if she might want to reconsider. You know what he thought? He thought this was his house. It's my house now, Louise said. Louise says, a ghost? Louise, is it someone you know? Is your mother okay? My mother? Louise says. It wasn't my mother. It was a naked man. I've never seen him before in my life. How naked? Anna says. A little naked or a lot? None of your beeswax, Louise says. Was it green? Anna says. Maybe it was someone that you went out with in high school, Louise says. An old lover. Maybe they just killed themselves or were in a horrible car accident. Was he covered in blood? Did he say anything? Maybe he wants to warn you about something." "He didn't say anything," Louise says, "and then he vanished. First he got smaller and then he vanished." Louise shivers, and then so does Louise. For the first time she feels frightened. The ghost of a naked man was levitating in her bathtub. He could be anywhere. Maybe, while she was sleeping, he was floating above her bed, right above her nose, watching her sleep. She'll have to sleep with the broom from now on. "Maybe he won't come back," Louise says. And Louise nods. What if he does? Who can she call? The rude man with the heavy gloves? The woman comes to their table again. Any dessert, she wants to know? Coffee? "If you had a ghost," Louise says, "how would you get rid of it?" Louise kicks Louise under the table. The woman thinks for a minute. "I'd go see a psychiatrist," she says. "Get some kind of prescription. Coffee?" But Anna has to go to her tumble class. She's learning how to stand on her head, how to fall down and not be hurt. Louise gets the woman to put the leftover mashed green potatoes in a container, and she wraps up the dinner rolls in a napkin and bundles them into her purse along with a few packets of sugar. They walk out of the restaurant together, Louise first. Behind her, Anna whispers something to Louise. "Louise?" Louise says. "What?" Louise says, turning back. "You need to walk behind me," Anna says. "You can't be first." "Come back and talk to me," Louise says, patting the air. "Say thank you, Anna." Anna doesn't say anything. She walks before them, slowly, so that they have to walk slowly as well. "So, what should I do?" Louise says. "About the ghost? I don't know. Is he cute? Maybe he'll creep into bed with you. Maybe he's your demon lover." "Oh, please," Louise says. "Yuck." Louise says, "Sorry. You should call your mother." "When I had the problem with the ladybugs," Louise says, "she said they would go away if I sang them that nursery rhyme. Ladybug, ladybug, fly away home." "Well," Louise says, "they did go away, didn't they?" "Not until I went away first," Louise says. "Maybe it's someone who used to live in the house before you moved in. Maybe he's buried under the floor of your bedroom or in the wall or something." "Just like the possum," Louise says. "Maybe it's Santa Claus." Louise's mother lives in a retirement community 2 states away. Louise cleaned out her mother's basement and garage, put her mother's furniture in storage, sold her mother's house. Her mother wanted this. She gave Louise the money from the sale of the house so that Louise could buy her own house. But she wouldn't come visit Louise in her new house. She won't let Louise send her on a package vacation. Sometimes she pretends not to recognize Louise when Louise calls. Or maybe she really doesn't recognize her. Maybe this is why Louise's clients travel. Settle down in one place and you get lazy. You don't bother to remember things like taking baths or your daughter's name. When you travel, everything's always new. If you don't speak the language, it isn't a big deal. Nobody expects you to understand everything they say. You can wear the same clothes every day, and the other travelers will be impressed with your careful packing. When you wake up and you're not sure where you are, there's a perfectly good reason for that. "Hello, Mum," Louise says when her mother picks up the phone. "Who is this?" her mother says. "Louise," Louise says. "Oh, yes," her mother says. "Louise, how nice to speak to you." There is an awkward pause, and then her mother says, "If you're calling because it's your birthday, I'm sorry. I forgot." "It isn't my birthday," Louise says. "Mum, remember the ladybugs?" "Oh, yes," her mother says. "You sent pictures. They were lovely." "I have a ghost," Louise says. and I was hoping that you would know how to get rid of it." "A ghost," her mother says. "It isn't your father, is it?" "No," Louise says. "This ghost doesn't have any clothes on, Mom. It's naked, and I saw it for a minute, and then it disappeared, and then I saw it again in my bathtub. Well, sort of." "Are you sure it's a ghost?" her mother says. "Yes, positive," Louise says. "And it isn't your father?" "No, it's not, Dad. It doesn't look like anyone I've ever seen before." Her mother says, "Lucy, you don't know her. Mrs. Peterson's husband died 2 nights ago. Is it a short, fat man with an ugly mustache, dark complected?" "It isn't Mr. Peterson," Louise says. "Have you asked what it wants?" "Mom, I don't care what it wants," Louise says. "I just want it to go away." "Well," her mother says, "try hot water and salt. Scrub all the floors. You should polish them with lemon oil afterwards so they don't get streaky. Wash the windows, too. Wash all the bed linens and beat all the rugs. And put the sheets back on the bed inside out. And turn all your clothes on the hangers inside out. Clean the bathroom." "Inside out," Louise says. "Inside out," her mother says, "confuses them." "I think it's pretty confused already. About clothes, anyway. Are you sure this works?" "Positive," her mother says. "We're always having supernatural infestations around here. Sometimes it gets hard to tell who's alive and who's dead. If cleaning the house doesn't work, try hanging garlic up on strings. Ghosts hate garlic. Or they like it. It's either one or the other, love or hate it. So what else is happening? When are you coming to visit?" "I had lunch today with Louise," Louise says. "Aren't you too old to have an imaginary friend?" her mother says. "Mom, you know Louise. Remember? Girl Scouts, college. She has the little girl, Anna. Louise." "Of course I remember Louise," her mother says. "My own daughter. You're a very rude person." She hangs up. Salt, Louise thinks. Salt and hot water. She should write these things down. Maybe she could send her mother a tape recorder. She sits down on the kitchen floor and cries. That's one kind of salt water. Then she scrubs floors, beats rugs, washes her sheets and her blankets. She washes her clothes and hangs them back up inside out. While she works, the ghost lies half under the bed, feet and genitalia pointed at her accusingly. She scrubs around it, him, it. She is being squeamish, Louise thinks, afraid to touch it, and that makes her angry. So she picks up her broom, pokes at the fleshy thighs, and the ghost hisses under the bed like an angry cat. She jumps back, and then it isn't there anymore. But she sleeps on the living room sofa. She keeps all the lights on in all the rooms of the house.